So far, there were no rules that prevented you from using ESG or other sustainability-related terms in the names of your investment funds. This is becoming increasingly not possible or no longer possible as a consequence of rules that are implemented from all sides of the global market. In this video, we wanted to concentrate on the rules that govern the use of ESG terms in fund names as they apply in France, which is one of the most sought-after markets for European distribution. As a bonus, we will also see how you could market your European funds that have an ESG term in their name in France. Let's dive in. One of the acquis of the recent green transition to a green economy is that there is a mismatch between the demand of products that have a sustainability or ESG profile and the pool of existing investments that are sustainable. This creates a situation where market participants might want to prop up the profile of their products or of their entities in order to gain a share of the market, and this creates situations where greenwashing can occur. If you want to know more about greenwashing, we have linked an article in the description of the video, because today we will focus on what happens in France. We know that by the end of 2022 and in the course of 2023, there was a discussion in Europe about introducing these rules on the use of ESG terms in fund names. But these rules did exist already and were applicable since 2020 in France, also to foreign European UCITS and retail ELTIFs marketed in France, and so not only to the French UCITS or the other types of French retail funds. These rules were introduced via a position recommendation from the local regulator, the AMF. A position recommendation is, in essence, an official interpretation of existing rules, which in a way wants to suggest what is the best practice in this situation. And this position recommendation wants to interpret the existing rules on marketing communication for what concerns the fairness, the clearliness, and the fact that this should not be misleading for investors when there is a sustainability or a non-financial approach, as they call it in France. These so-called AMF ESG rules identify different types of communication for what concerns the non-financial approaches or the ESG or sustainable elements, if you like. These elements could be central to a communication, and this is always the case when an ESG or a sustainable term is included in the name of a fund. They could be limited when they're not in the name, but they are present in the suite of marketing documentation. And there is a third level of communication where basically the references are only in the constitutional documents of a fund and are made in a very proportionate manner. The reality of the position recommendation from the AMF is that the use of non-financial approaches or ESG or sustainable terms in the name of funds, which from a French perspective means making of ESG a central element of a communication of a fund, this can only be made in essence when we have a fund that meets the requirement of the so-called SRI label, which is the local sustainability label introduced by the French Minister of Finance for French products. In reality, it is very unlikely that any European fund will be able to meet the requirements of the SRI label, if at all it was possible for them to even apply. That is because from a quantitative perspective, most part of the investments in the portfolio of a fund should have a sustainability profile. profile. The rules on the SRI label say in excess of 90%. If we look at the equivalent rules in the US, in Europe, and even in the UK, we have a lower threshold of 70%. But if that wasn't the issue, realistically, the label, the SRI label in France, imposes more stringent rules also on the composition and the design of the portfolio, which are very difficult to meet for funds that are not French and don't have the label. In reality, this is a situation that we will likely see also in the UK, because it's still debated whether under the new overseas fund regime there will be a possibility for European funds to have some sort of recognition for a UK label. And if you wanted to know more about UK SDR rules, we have linked an article in the description of this video. So what happens if you have an ESG term in the name of one of your investment funds and you nevertheless want to market it in France? This is indeed possible because France cannot close officially and formally its borders to European funds. But in practice, you will have to add a disclosure whereby you state that, considering the expectations of the AMF for what concerns funds that have central communications on non-financial aspects, meaning that they use ESG terms in their fund names, the claims that you make for your European products are somehow exaggerated. We shouldn't conclude that that means to sort of an assessment of your European product being purporting to have sustainability characteristics that in reality it doesn't have. But it is an approach that we will see increasingly. This is also what will happen in the UK, for instance, where, even though in a more British way, the concept is the same, because European funds, assuming that there is no extension of the UK label also to European funds, will have to disclaim that they don't qualify for a label under the UK SDR. If you made it to this part of the video, good for you. I wanted to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit like to this video. There is much more to come on European distribution and sustainability. As always, thank you for watching and stay tuned.